Welcome to the CEO Bros Podcast, After Hours, with Brian Baldoff, co-founded, grew, and sold VHT Studios. Brad Baldoff, CEO and co-founder of By Your Side Autism Therapy Services. Matt Crope, the consummate entertainer, jack of all trades, and serves as our host.
And then B writes.
It just makes it more fun, guys.
And you know what this is? This is the CEO Bros After Hours podcast. Welcome, everybody.
This is when the Tito starts to settle in. We start talking about dinosaur names.
This is going to be a fun one. Brad is already fired up. We're talking about communication this week. And Brad's view, communication is everything. Brian, yours as well. But communication, we're talking internal communication, not communicating with the consumer, the customer.
Yeah.
So it's, you feel...
it's the bedrock to everything in a company's success or failure. It revolves around communication. And I feel actually very strong about it. I'd like to say that one of the things I pride myself in is I think that I attempt to be the most transparent leader I could potentially be. I want my leadership team, I want my employees, I want everybody to know everything we're doing. And I don't really hide much of anything because I feel like sharing information is, if you're informed on what's going on, it's power. People want power and they want to know what's going on. Like you ask somebody to do something and you don't provide the why. I just think it leads to so many problems. It's like people start to speculate, they assume things, they start to do things, and it's like they get fired up over stuff that just doesn't make it's not pertinent, it's not important. And so I actually reinforce with my team all the time, like, guys, communication has to be a key priority to us in every single goal and objective. Something's got to revolve around communication.
So can I bring up a relevant example?
Yes.
No. Yes.
I thought we were talking about culture today.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, think about it. We were
Maybe
supposed to talk about
misunderstood.
I think we were supposed to talk about culture start.
Got it.
Matt.
Got it.
But I am like so fired up about the topic of communication.
He just did that to illustrate poor communication leads to.
Wow. So we're going to go back to, we're going to come back to communication.
If somebody wasn't distracting us by eating snacks while we were planning today's episode.
For those of you that are considering advertising, the habanero chips are delicious.
All right, so start with culture.
You've convinced me.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's
Brian,
all right.
Please start us on culture.
Yes, I'm the king of culture. Not really. The only reason I appreciate it is because I did not really think about it much, consider it much. And like a lot of things with starting a business.
Tonight or overall when you're starting your business?
Overall, starting the business. Okay. It became more important as we grew and as we got bigger. And I realized how much... There's a lot of things that you do in the beginning of a business that you don't give a lot of thought to, that later on you go, geez, I wish I had thought about this earlier.
What's important to the overall around in the office environment, because I'm thinking of culture in the office environment.
Yeah, exactly. Interactions between employees, how we work. To me, the key with culture is what's important to us as a company. Mm-hmm. What do we want to be known for? How do we want to operate? How do we want to treat each other? What are our values? Those are all things that, like I said, are going to happen whether you think about them or not. A culture is going to develop. And you as a leader and you as a founder should really kind of take ownership of that early on. I think in some cases...
Well, it starts with you. I mean, so how you come into the office and the image, the MO that you have for the rest of the team, I think sets the tone with everything. I mean, if you come in and you're completely lax and you don't care about this or that, it's going to resonate throughout the offices. And that's something that's really important to me that I share with my team. And that's, I think, where you're going, right?
Yeah, you brought up inspect what you expect. If you don't do that, your culture is going to be chaos, and that's going to impact the success of your company. But, it's how decisions get made, how the organization's structured, who do people report to, how are the teams set up? All of those things affect the operating rhythm of a company.
It's good. Operating rhythm, Mike.
Operating rhythm. How tightly does this group work together?
So that's not a personality trait. You're talking structure. I mean, is this in a business plan? I mean, can you identify culture off the top of the bat, or it's like, well, culture is just,
I don't know. It is kind of the personality of the company.
Take like dress code as an example. Like, I mean, that's something within the internal framework around the operating or the office environment where one person can be like, I don't care what anybody wears. Just come in. I want you to be comfortable. Another person could say, I want absolute professionalism. I want everybody to look tidy, look professional, and provide an image of X or Y or Z. So I mean, it really does start with the leader of the company and say, what do you want to start, and then what do you want to be permeating throughout the entire company? Whether you have 3 employees or you have, why are you laughing at me? Do you not like some of our guidelines, Matt? Is that why I'm getting this kind of reaction?
Remember the big debate on whether people could wear the scrubs? I was just thinking of that was, and we had to make a decision. Is that too clinical? We were doing.
It's ironic, Matt. We're actually going that direction right now. A lot of our employees don't know we're actually going to be going in a direction with a uniform type. Potentially with more uniform.
No more Spanx, Matt.
Matt's been wearing Spanx.
No more Lululemon.
Wait. Speaking of uniform, are we plugging Otherwise Civilized? By the way,
yeah, speaking of
we'll have to. That's
when I said a tightly oiled machine, like our band. For those who don't know,
we seem to don't have any standards with this podcast.
That is their band. That not only the brothers, another brother, all 3 brothers do Otherwise Civilized.
Yeah, when we're not here at Studio G, we're
look them up on iTunes.
Rock and roll. So
yeah, plug to Brett Baldiff, our other brother, who's the lead vocalist in a band that we like to play on the side. We enjoy doing it.
Any songs on iTunes?
Otherwise Civilized. We have one tune called One More Day.
We have a lot of originals. We just haven't published them. So.
One tune called One More Day, but we actually...
All right, so going to the work. So the work is heading towards a more...
Yeah, I mean, it's about the environment. Like Brian's saying, the tone gets set up right up front, and and that environment actually kind of rolls out further than corporate, because if you have multiple locations like we do, I mean, there's an opportunity for the leader within those different locations to set the environment, to set the culture. I mean, obviously consistent with the corporate look, feel, what we want to be pushing. But at the same time, it's an opportunity to drive the right type of culture. What do you want out of your team? And a lot of leaders, like I think Brian was going down this path, is that they don't think about it until it's too late. The culture then gets established by default.
Like, how did this happen? Like, wait a minute.
What's your dog story? That's culture, isn't it?
Well, that's a real good example of culture. We
early on,
we were in a warehouse. We were like, the front was the office, the back was the warehouse, and somebody innocently asked, "Hey, can I bring my dog in tomorrow? It's an emergency, whatever." I'm like, sure. I'm super easygoing for anybody who knows me. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Bring their dog in. They bring it in the next day.
That's BS, Rex. Make sure you note that at the 1 minute and 8 second mark, he said he's easygoing. He's not. But go on, Brian.
So, as always happens when you allow something, someone else saw that person A was bringing in their dog, so they brought in their dog. It's like, all right, that's fine.
Sure.
So no problem.
Shih Tzu
dogs.
Right,
what possibly could go wrong?
What could go wrong when you let 2 dogs in?
We've capped it now. It's about, I think, as many people as will bring in their pets.
Right. Until 2 weeks later, there's cockatoos, there's salamanders, there's cats, bearded dragons, goldfish, everything, 6 or 7 different dogs.
And you find yourself going, well, I can't tell someone to stop because now I'm singling. Now you're
playing favorites.
Yeah, who do why did so-and-so get to bring their dog in? And, that first dog just laid there, didn't do anything. The second dog wasn't that bad, but then the third dog decides it didn't like the first dog, and so they fight and they bark, and people in customer service are going, hey, So that's an example of culture gone amok.
You set a culture you didn't even realize you were setting.
Didn't even realize.
I mean, that's the thing, is that,
but then had to change it.
Yeah, that you may not... culture can get away from you if you're not paying attention. Wait, this could be.
Well, I mean, we're obviously we're making very light. I mean, we're joking around about situations that are like taken to the extreme, but the reality is it can happen really quickly, real easily by just no controls, processes, or kind of guidelines set right up front. Like, hey guys, this is my expectations for how we're going to operate day to day. I mean, we're not going, when we get a phone call or we get an email from somebody, we're going to respond within 24 hours. We're not going to get back to somebody in a week. And those things you would think are like, oh, they're just common sense. It's like, but they're not.
They're not. Yeah.
They're not. There's a lot of people out there that just don't have those expectations. And it's like, I didn't even know, you wanted to communicate in that manner. And it's like, wow, what do I have to get back to the basics? And the reality is, if you're starting a business, especially where you're going to have employees, you're going to have more than a couple employees. It's really important that you think through what type of culture do I want within where we're going to be operating. If we're in an office environment, what are your expectations? Make it clear. This is what I'm expecting from a communication, a response time, how we treat each other, whether it's, just overall, respect for each other and respect for each other's personal space. I mean, it goes into a laundry list of things that you would think anybody and everybody has these, well, it's common sense. And it's not.
It's not.
It's not common
There are
sense.
less challenges as a startup, let's say 5 to 20 employees. And then you start to get large enough where you need an HR team. And now are there more challenges, or is it less challenges once you get to HR, because then they're handling all of these things? Or
No,
are they
I
two
think
completely
this is
different? A small company going to a bigger company? Because I remember even getting at By Your Side, the first marketing team. That was a big deal. Then we got an HR team. Like, slowly these departments started becoming official.
Well, this is why you want to implement culture early, so that as the company expands and new people come on board, they have a strong, I know what this company's all about and I know how they operate, so that they can just kind of go in line. Like, so 2 things. One is, at VHT Studios, I heard from everybody, boy, your team is so friendly. Because people would come to visit and they would sit in the lobby and people would be walking by to the cafeteria and they'd say, oh, have you been helped? Do you want anything? Can I get you a drink? And people are always impressed by that. I'm like, okay, that's just common courtesy. That's how I always treated people. And the employees that we hired, it might have been, those are the kind of people we were looking for, or they might have just picked up on, well, that's what everybody else does, so I'll do it. But I mean, 10 years in, I was still getting compliments from people like, boy, your employees are so friendly. And that carries beyond just the lobby. People can hear that on the phone if it's a good culture. They go,
with clients, with each other.
I can tell this person likes to work there. I can tell this person's proud of their job. I can tell this person is passionate about what they do. That's what culture does for you. It really carries outward, but it's so squishy. It's not something you can just put in a business plan and make rules
I'm
for.
in client relations, and from when I talk to parents every single day, tone, how many times I hear the tone of that person. Tone is huge. Right.
We'll talk about that on the communication side. We'll go in that a little bit. But, it's actually kind of ironic. By Your Side has 11 facilities now. If there's anybody out there from the By Your Side crew that hears this, one of the first things I tell our center director, the leader of a center, especially a newer center, I said, do you know you have an opportunity to start the culture right out of the gate? I mean, like, because, we're going to open a center and then we're going to have our first few employees. And you set the tone with those employees. Don't wait until you're 3 months in to set your rules and guidelines. Don't wait months out there before you start saying, how I want us to talk. Here's how I want us to act. Here's how I want us to clean up after, when you leave a mess in the kitchen. It's like, it's
that's
all
like
those,
right out of office.
all those things have
up.
to be discussed right up front. And I actually tell our center directors, it's like one of the first conversations I have with them. You get to set the culture, even though By Your Side's been in existence for 15 years. A newer center is an opportunity to create a culture from the very get-go of how do you want this to operate. And I would tell, even our centers that are more mature and been around operating for multiple years, I'm like, as you ultimately, if there's any turnover of employees and you have new employees coming in, you can reset the culture. You can reset it if you don't like where things are at. It's harder for more mature locations. But the culture sets everything. It sets the tone, one for all for one. Follow up, we're going to be all over things. We're going to be a happy unit. And you can't take that stuff for granted.
No, the cleanup is definitely one of my tops. I remember when I was managing West Coast video rental stores. Probably dating myself again. But
well, you left a lot of hamburger wrappers around and you didn't clean up after yourself, is what I heard.
No, exact opposite. So I would always sweep the front of the store, sweep the parking lot. I would clean the windows, and it was so gratifying to have employees come up and say, "Hey, why are you? Let me do that. I should be doing that. Why are you doing that?" I'm like, "Well, because it needs to get done."
It needs to get done.
But it kind of sent that message, like, "Hey, everybody should do this." I mean,
doesn't matter if I'm the manager of the store. Doesn't matter if I'm the owner of the store.
Let's take pride in where we work. Let's take pride. I mean, and we did other things. There's culture stuff like, we had after work volleyball teams and softball teams and bowling outings. And we did, in the early days when we were in the warehouse, we did Change Your Latitude Fridays. So at like 4:30, we'd bring in a couple of cases of beer and,
what?
And then
turn up the mic. A-Rex, I want to understand this a little bit better.
But
you brought beer into the office?
We did, and we had a grill.
That's got liability.
I think I told you that we had a charcoal
that.
grill in the back. And then somebody told us that was very dangerous to be grilling indoors.
Yeah.
Didn't realize that. I mean, we played in the back of the warehouse. We
just did a bonfire instead. We thought that was less dangerous.
Well, okay, if it's the charcoal briquettes that are the problem.
We kept running out of kerosene. Wait, what?
But we used to play floor hockey in the back. We used to we had a lot of musicians at our company, so their bands could practice in the back. So it was kind of that culture. And I think the biggest thing that came out of it that we really insisted on was everybody wears multiple hats in a startup. If I ever heard somebody say, "That's not my job," I would,
you'd lose it. No, you'd lose it because it's like there's nobody beneath. There's nothing beneath me what I'll do. I mean, I remember grabbing. We had a bathroom that overflowed. This is not my terrible turd moment, but I was going to say,
we were going to get to that.
I was just going to say that if you're a business leader, and this goes for anybody, it doesn't even be a startup, because I'm talking about like now you're a manager within a business, you're someone that's running a department day to day. It's like you have to demonstrate like you're willing to do whatever it takes. And as soon as you do that, then others see it and they'll follow. And there's actually a gentleman I know that runs the Kalahari resorts up in Wisconsin Dells, and the gentleman's very wealthy. His name is Todd, and he runs the entire Kalahari resorts. And everybody, it's a multi-million-dollar operation, resort, water parks, everything. And I sit on the board there. And the one thing that everybody routinely says about Todd, who's the CEO, is like, if he sees like a scrap, just a piece of garbage, like on the front lawn, he's picking it up. He's grabbing a broom. That's
what Walt Disney used to do.
It's just that there's nothing beneath you. You have to feel like you will do anything and everything that's possible to make your department, your center, your operation, your office, whatever you're running. You have to take pride in that, because what you do sets the tone for everything. Everybody will follow. It resonates. And conversely, if you're someone that comes in the office in a poor mood, negative mood, anxious mood, it's going to resonate throughout the entire department. And that's the culture that you set.
Is it just me real quick, or is anyone else thinking that when you walk into Brian's place of work, there are animals running everywhere? There's a grill in the back.
Like volleyball games going on.
Floor hockey. I'd be going, what am I walking into?
It's very fun.
How did I get anything done? Speaking about Brian, getting clients and getting
everywhere.
Getting getting clients and getting revenue in soon. How did you do that with all these? Did you feel like your point is, though, that you had a landscape and environment where the culture was, hey, we're going to have fun. We're gonna work hard, play hard.
Yes, work hard, play hard.
We're gonna take care of each other. No job.
We're all in
is
this
too small.
Together.
Well, what about for those who are not in together? Any advice for
cut out the cancer immediately?
Well, so you are going to have some people who may make the culture toxic, and it doesn't take that many. Go ahead. You're ahead of me.
I'm sorry. Is that where you're going?
No, you feel strong that you're already answering it.
Oh yeah, because once you kill the culture, it impacts so many other things in the business. You can't let that cancer spread. The negative Nellies or the not my job or something like that.
Is it easy to get rid of them?
No, not always, because they could be a top performer.
No, you're right. If you have a higher maintenance, but I mean, I can think back to we have a facility, one of our first centers that we opened in Schaumburg, and way back when we had a situation in which there was just office gossip, there was unprofessionalism, there was cliques, it was bullying, No, it was really actually kind of sad.
Cats and dogs living with each other.
No, that's your place.
What movie is that?
That's your business.
What movie is that, by the way?
That's Stripes.
Cats and
No,
dogs.
Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters. There we go. Let's get our
But we had an environment in which it turned out that I actually got to a point where I pulled 45 people into a room, and they were all around the perimeter of the room. And I just said, I just want to make sure that everybody hears the same message at the same time about how this office is going to work and what my expectations are for professionalism, how you'll treat each other in the office, the respect that you'll show for each other. And I'm giving everybody, this is your final warning to everybody. And if it continues beyond today, because it was one of these things that was building up and people are saying it's like actually not enjoyable to come in the office. And we started to lose focus on what are we here for in the first place, which was to service these kids that needed help on the autism spectrum. And I said, so I just want to make sure everybody's clear that what we're going to do is everybody's going to hear the same message at the same time. It was a mandatory meeting. We pulled everybody into a room, and sure enough, over the next couple of days after that meeting, there were some people that just felt like they could operate in their own rules. And I went to our operations officer and said, I want you to terminate each of those 3 people every half hour over the first hour and a half. And everybody's going to see that we're walking these people out the door because we have set the rules. We're not going to tolerate this in our environment. And it's about the culture, preserving the culture for the better good of everybody there. And
the 90% appreciates it that you did that. It drives them crazy when someone who's
in action is sending a huge message. That's the problem.
Like, oh, maybe the culture's changing. Maybe he doesn't care as much about it. So,
yeah, it wasn't about demonstrating power or this or that. It was more about like, listen, guys, we care about the culture. We care about the landscape of our office. And there's a lot of people, the vast majority of our employees care about how we're operating in this environment. And there's a few a small number of people that just have zero regard for that. And so guess what? I don't really care how you feel about me. I don't care how you review me or the company. We're going to remove the toxic personalities from this office, but I gave everybody a fair shot to like, let's correct and move in the right direction. So you can fix it when there is a problem. Just give everybody a fair shot, be equitable and fair to everybody.
It's a great quote about avoid something for short-term discomfort means long-term dysfunction.
Yeah, that's a good saying. I like that. I mean, you were in sales. I was in outside sales for a long time and went into a lot of different companies, saw a lot of different cultures. And I was shocked at how many of them were, the beatings will continue until morale improves. It's like, really? You run your business that way? Like, you get more out of people by, the teamwork and the camaraderie and the common vision and the common goals than you do with other stuff. And, I think there's things like, acknowledging people, recognizing people, as part of a culture, clear, concise communication of expectations and where we're going and how things work, decisions getting made. I said that's another thing that kills culture is when decisions can't get made. I've seen that over and over again.
Indecisiveness or just
indecisiveness, and people paralysis. Are like, what is going on here? What are we in this to win or not?
I'm not sure, about the culture on the culture front too. I'm not sure if I've got it right, but for those of you out there, if you want to pick up a very short, easy read, pick up the 1 Minute Manager. I think it's Ken Blanchard that has it. But what's really interesting about it is literally just catching people on the spot, either doing the right thing or doing the wrong thing, and addressing it on the spot. Where somebody does something right, you pull them aside and say, "Can I just have you for 1 second?" It's like, hey, when you were doing that with that client, or you were talking with that employee about this, or you're doing this in the office, I just want to let you know that we really appreciate it because this is what it did for the office or what it did for the company. And they're waiting for a but. And it's like, no, I just wanted to let you know, carry on. And it's like, they appreciate hearing that, like, hey, you just did something great. And that type of environment, and that can help you. I try to do that whenever possible. It's hard because you're busy. You're running 100 miles an hour, but it's the same thing. If somebody does something wrong, instead of waiting for an annual review or waiting for a quarterly review, just pull them aside and just say, hey, you know, that one thing, just don't do it. That's it. It's like, that's all.
Then it's done.
Carry on, move on. And if it's the type of culture you want to set. And so I do firmly believe that what's cool about, this topic is that whether you're someone that wants to start a new business, you're running a department, you've been at a company you've been at a company for a while and you're trying to manage a department. I mean, this applies in every aspect of your business day to day. And I would say that do your best to foster a culture and have discipline to it and really drive whatever those behaviors are that you want to instill to happen every day. And you know what? Sometimes people may be like, I'm not going to listen to it. If you stay consistent and you keep doing it over and over, you'll see people will fall in line and they'll say, you know what? I know what she's trying to do. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to do this. I am going to fall in line. And you'd be surprised at the result, how much productivity increases or how much efficiency you realize because everybody's rowing the boat in the same direction.
Yeah, and it definitely comes from the top down. Like you said, you got to set the example. You got to be consistent. You can't share problems down. Like,
explain.
Well, so we've talked about, why a podcast for CEOs, and it's because you don't have a lot of people to talk to. You can't go in as a CEO or a founder or entrepreneur, you started the company, you can't go in every day and bitch about stuff because that just sets a bad tone, and then they bitch, and and it carries through to your client.
It resonates.
You're having a bad day, you still got to walk in, smile, laugh, say things are great, how you doing, Jim? Look people in the eye, shake hands. And then deal with it behind a closed door.
And be proud to sell those Dickies. Or Afghans.
You have Afghan Dickies. There's a whole new product.
Nice.
You have many awards by your side. The one that, talking about culture, that I really like is you have employees, and I know this isn't, employees vote for Employee of the Quarter. So the employees themselves are voting for that, which is a great award to get because your coworkers are voting on that. That's one of the culture.
Yeah, it's within the culture that, you should be proud to be named a nominee because you were nominated by your peers.
Somebody recognized
Someone recognized you and actually took the time to put a vote in for you and say, I think this person should receive Employee of the Quarter for these reasons. And then ultimately the majority or the person who receives the most vote gets the Employee of the Quarter in that office. And it's a culture in which your peers nominate peers and say, like, we think this person is phenomenal. And it's something that we've had for probably 10 years in place, and we just continue to run it that way because we believe that it actually has a resonating effect.
And on a smaller scale, but still as effective, your hot shots.
And the Hot Shots Awards, which is literally a simple, like, if I catch you doing something right at all, I just pull out a little piece of paper. It's called a Hot Shots ticket. And I write down, Brian Baldoff, caught him doing this, doing the right thing. Caught him. Yeah. He wasn't, doing something right. Going over and beyond, doing
Put up on a bulletin board.
Doing something exceptional, signed by me, pin it up on the board. We pull all the Hot Shots tickets down. At the end of the quarter, we draw a name and you win a $50 prize. And it's just something like, hey, this is like something that takes 30 seconds for you to do. And, but it's part of the culture. It's something that we want to incentivize people to take the time to speak about others. But getting back to the point, I mean, it's literally about the culture. You have to set something right up out of the gate of what your expectations are. And, if you don't set up, it's funny, if you don't set an expectation, you'll get back to somebody within 24 hours. I mean, they could get back to somebody within a week, and a client's like, I never heard back from you guys. Yeah. So you got to set it up front.
We set one early, which was end of day response. If somebody calls in, emails, whatever, asks us a question, someone, whoever took it, has to get back to that person by the end of the day. Even if you don't have the answer, you just call back and say, hey, we got your message earlier. Just wanted to let you know we're working on this. We should have an answer tomorrow. And so that in and of itself was important, but it was important for the whole company to know it, because just because I took the call doesn't mean I could solve the problem. So the people downstream need to know, hey, Brian's got to get back to this guy by 6:00. I better look into this, or I better do my part. We're all accountable to each other to deliver on that promise. And
I want
funny,
you to,
when we were talking about walking around I pictured Brad putting gold stars. Hey, Chippy, great job.
Come
Sorry.
on now.
I want you to both think of other examples where the culture, that example like that helps the culture. Because I think, because we're not that far away from the end. Let's save communication for the next episode, because culture's been such a robust topic.
Are we at the end of our podcast?
We are not, but we are on a side. So think of other culture examples, because I'm going to come back to that. But now we're going to do our side segment where we had notable nuggets, but now it's time for a terrible turd. These are side topics of wisdom from one of the CEOs, and I believe, Brad, you're going to talk about this week's.
It could be a tiny turd. It doesn't have to be
tiny.
terrible.
It doesn't have to
Well,
be
it's kind of
terrible.
ironic. I mean, excuse the pun here, but one of the things that disasters that we had to deal with was and you're trying to think through the business, and you're trying to put different budgets together for appropriate, like how much money should we set aside for. We talked about startup capital, but your operating expense. And one of our operating expenses was plumbing. And you would think like, okay, you just
That's not a usual.
you have an occasional plumbing expense. And we went from having like a $4,000 annual plumbing budget to where we came in with like an annual expenditure of like 28 grand. And it was our toilets were getting clogged up. And it wasn't from what you think. It wasn't from, disgusting things. It was kids throwing
from terrible turds.
Kids throwing things into the toilet, toys, other products,
a lot of the wipes.
Just everything and anything under the sun. They'd go in the bathroom, they'd throw things in there. And it's just like one of those things like, okay, we got to set a policy for this. We got to set, but it's like,
that's always my favorite, when you got to make a sign for something.
I mean, they would come in. It was no small feat. People would come into the center, and these would be working and trying to route this out in the middle of the center. I mean, it really stopped.
People couldn't believe
That's
that we
crazy.
were spending $28,000 a year in plumbing. Just think about it, just on plumbing, and for a plumber to come in and be like, you know what's in there? There's a stuffed
That's like
animal.
Soldier Field budget for plumbing.
Well, didn't
The Wrigley Field trough.
Didn't one of the centers say, when you guys grew and expanded that space in the center, they're like, these pipes were really not built for all of this. So that's completely out of your scope. How would you even know that? And you had to deal with these pipes down there weren't even really big enough to handle the kind of traffic that's in there now.
Yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it's kind of funny that we're calling it. We have a title of terrible
ironic.
turds. For those that you're out there, we're trying to think of different topics that have happened through the years that are kind of, things gone awry, things didn't work
Pitfalls
out the way.
to look out
Pitfalls,
for.
things that you look at.
Things that wouldn't flush.
Things that wouldn't flush. I mean, this is a great example of like where you're setting a budget and there's something out there that you didn't even account for that could happen in the course of a business. And you're like, how in the world are we spending X dollars for this problem when you go, this has got to be a major mistake, or this is common sense. And it winds up being, no, these are the types of things that happen in your world if you're starting a business, running a business, managing a business. And it's funny, you're sitting around a conference room with your leaders and you're saying like, all right, what are we going to do about that problem? And it's, so I call it the terrible, we'll give it that. But the
reality with the
is,
dinosaur, right? Isn't that the thing? It's everything should be a dinosaur.
I know at some point in the next episode or two, we'll talk about like when you get hit with an oncoming, an unforeseen disaster, or something suddenly hits you and you weren't prepared for it. What do you do?
Right. That's bigger than a.
Yeah, this is something small. I would consider trivial in the bigger scheme of things, but it just goes to show you like something that can come along and hits you, and you're like, okay, wow, my budget's completely out of whack because I didn't expect to deal with this unforeseen mess.
We had,
Excuse the word.
We had carpet cleaning bills. I could not believe how many people spilled coffee on the carpets at the office. I'm not a coffee drinker myself, so I was like, okay, seriously, there's another big coffee spill on the carpet again.
Well, what people don't realize though, that it's like every single time you have to get it cleaned, replaced, redone. People have no idea. It's like the cost just keeps adding up, and it's like, guys, if we want to be a profitable business, I mean, and here's another line you'll hear from me a million times say is death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes from all different directions, things that you aren't expecting, you do get frustrated and you get a sense of like, guys, these are the types of things we need to look out for. We can't have this stuff repetitively happen. And so, I mean, the takeaway on that would just be able to pivot, be able to move in a direction where you're going to be thrown curveballs. We're going to talk about more significant curveballs and how do you deal with it. But that would be my one for the week.
Great. Let's get back to culture. So I gave you some. We're talking about setting a culture, and we're not going to go into communication because we're going to use that for the next episode. So we spent so much good stuff here. Any other specific examples of things you've either implemented that you could say, hey, this was important? Like, is morale events important? I know you mentioned already hockey games. I know some schools of thought say, no, they shouldn't be friends after work, just work and go home. And other people say, no, let them go out and have some drinks and meet afterwards. Anything that you can think of, either with you or anecdotally, that you thought was either a positive or a negative in terms of how to build culture?
I've got one. Don't let me forget it because I want to jump back to something else.
Okay. How do we make sure you don't forget it? We don't know what it is. Just say don't. Okay, that's fine. Code word dinosaur. Okay, fine. All right. Don't forget what we don't know.
I realized why this. I said early on I didn't think much about culture. When it really came to bear was COVID. When we went to work at home. The first few weeks it wasn't bad because everybody knew the culture of the company. But over time, you had to start hiring new people who'd never had the benefit of coming into the office and being involved in the breakfasts and the Change Your Latitude Fridays and the bowling leagues and the volleyball and really get to see it in person. It became very difficult, I thought, to carry the culture into a remote, work environment
where people aren't seeing each other every day.
So that's when it hit me. And then, Jamie Dimon from Chase, not my personal favorite in the world, but he said something not too long ago. They're bringing everybody back to the offices. And one of the reasons was, he said, we are not going to be able to develop future leaders if they're not immersed in the culture, if they're not in the company interacting with each other. Because, young people, they have a lot to learn about how business is really done. You go to school, business school or whatever, and you learn the P's and the Q's, but it's not that cut and dry. There's a lot of gray area in business, and there's a lot of personal interactions and, agendas and personalities and stuff like that. You've got to, that's part of that culture, is how do people at the company deal with that stuff.
One part of culture is having snacks available.
Having snacks available, or coffee, or
that could be one of
pool table, ping pong table.
Well, speaking of food, I mean, talking about culture, and I know we were talking more internal, but
you said that Brad, part of this podcast, would get me a free pizza every time we did one of these. I did not commit to that.
Yes, it is.
I know you.
It's the end of the week. We are having pizza after this, just so I know you're all dying to know that we're going to eat. But Portillo's, you can bring up your food at any and they'll just take it by no questions asked. I know that's not that uncommon, but that's their culture. I even told my daughter to do it. She went up to this big explanation that grabbed her salad and here's a new one. That's what they're, what they call identity. Or
I think,
you see it.
You do. You see it.
I think the takeaway should be that whether you're starting a business, managing a business, you want to grow a business, culture is key. You have to spend the time to outline what type of culture you want. Don't take it for granted. Don't think it's just going to happen. Oh, it's everybody thinks this way. No, they don't. You have to set, don't take anything for granted, and set kind of the rules of the road as you see it, what you would think will make and foster the most successful setting, and then lead by example. Do those things and make sure that I'm pointing this cracker right at Matt's head. These things.
What have I not done?
Your gold star.
I'm just saying,
garbage around. I can pick up.
You set the tone, right? You set the tone as the leader, and you let your team know, whether you have 2 employees or in the case what we have 550 employees. You let them know this is what our expectations are, and lead by example. If that means hey, I expect you to do the smallest trivial things and you're going to wear multiple hats, you better be doing it too. You better be doing everything that you would expect somebody else to do. I try to do to show them I'm in it with you. So that would be a key takeaway.
When you write your book that you're going to write, even though you haven't committed to one, but you will. I love that chapter should be called Pick Up a Broom. Pick up a broom. Great chapter title, right?
It's
as simple as that. If you want to know how to start, from listening to you both, my takeaway is, if you want a surefire way to say, how do I start culture? Pick up a broom. It means so much.
I'll give you another easy one that I just am daily baffled by how this doesn't happen on a regular basis. Say hello to people. Look them in the eye. I can't tell you how many offices I've walked in where people just will walk right past you. They don't look up. They don't say hello. It's like, how difficult is that? Especially in the morning when everybody's first coming in. Hey, Matt, how's it going? Hey, Brad, how's it going? Just tiny little effort, but it's amazing how many people just, they're distracted by something. They're,
you know where I see that is that if I'm going to check out and I've got 2 or 3 people ahead of me and something wrong is going up there, which is that the person just looks down like we're not there.
Right.
I find, and I know it's silly, the person that looks up and says, I'll be with you all just a minute, I feel so much better. Like, okay, they see me, even though they know and I'm not getting there any faster, but that's so impactful for me for just take time to say, this, we'll be right with you. Sorry about this. We'll get to you.
That's a big part of culture. I mean, you may have individuals that are unique, but there's companies where you get that from everybody because they recruit that type of person. They onboard the person that way. Like, I met with every new employee for our first, 10 years. I spent 2 days with them, kind of going through, here's why we started the company. Here was the vision for the company. Here's how we do things. Here's
Please don't spill your coffee on our rugs.
Yes, if you could.
Multiple rug cleanings is a problem for us.
By the way, he doesn't hear himself. Did you hear that list he was doing? He went down this and it kept going. He's like, and all the events we do, like bowling and then, archery and hang gliding. And I thought it was going to go on and on.
Wow, I got
paint building, fox
We don't
hunts,
have much creativity going on.
Snorkeling. I think you're just going to go on and I'm like, wow.
Yes,
No, I think, but
we were young.
The point here though is that it sounds like one thing that we share in common is that I just spent few days in Georgia and I wanted to get to talk to a lot of people, employees I've never talked to before. I think they're kind of surprised when I come up and I say, I want to get to know you. Tell me what you're aspiring to do, where you want to get to, and how can I help you? I don't think they know that I'm actually genuinely care, because if I know where they want to get to, there is potentially something I can do or our team can do to help you. And so it is set within the culture. That's important to us. We care about our employees. We want to know where they want to get to. We all, not just me, our whole leadership team takes that extra step to say, we want to try and find out where you want to go.
In real time right now, centers are based in Illinois. You just flew out to Georgia where we have 2 centers. You just got back. It's the end of the week. You just mentioned it. How'd that trip go? High level, just how'd it go?
I wanted to hear from our leadership team of which employees within the offices really stand out and which employees are doing an exceptional job. And I took the time on the plane ride back to write a personalized, customized email to a lot of different people saying, hey, this group of people said you're really trying to go over and beyond and really appreciate what you're doing, value what you're doing. And it's the culture we want to establish. We want everybody to know, like, hey, it's important to us and it does mean a lot to us. But again, don't take it for granted. It's something that you've got to establish, and then you've got to set that bar of how you want it to go, and then lead by example. So that's I guess the biggest piece of advice I would give from this segment.
Any final thoughts or examples on either good or bad or other companies or something that you've done to instill culture?
Do you appreciate the culture that I've established with the snacks up front here? We've got some booze back here.
Yeah, the culture in Studio G is fantastic. Could we wait for people who don't work for you? Can they just show up at your place to do barbecue and floor hockey and hang gliding and all
great cultures?
As long as they're willing to wear a lot of hats. And
so
work
we
hard.
accidentally teased that we're going to talk about communication. And speaking of communication, we were actually going to talk about culture. So
Can we please get into the next segment? Because
please join us.
Bedrock for all things.
Please join us next segment because it's going to be a great conversation. A lot of passion about it. If you're listening to us on a podcast, watch us on YouTube.
Spotify, Apple.
Yeah, we're going to have some information at the end of this podcast on where you can see us. Tell your friends. And we do read comments and suggestions. So please interact with us. We love that you're watching us and we want to engage. So until next time, we'll see you then.
It's good. Cheers.
Cheers. Let's get that pizza that we talked about.
Pizza.
Pizza.